morning. So we're in Elul Anila Deidi V'Deidi Li. I am to my beloved, and my beloved is to me. This is the theme of Elul leading up to Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Tishrei. So it's all the foundation is now, this time, right? So what do I mean by Deidi does? I was thinking about, why is faith the foundation of our religion? What's so special about faith? And how does that affect us if that's like the whole foundation of everything is faith? 13 pillars of faith. That defines our religion is faith. And like the idea of a religion itself might be like defined by the notion of faith. So what is our faith, and how does that lead for something meaningful in our life? Like, how does it affect my mindset? And that's what it's all about. Good morning. It's all about the way we interpret our circumstance. Whether you're going to be a sniveling sheep or something like that, like a paper mache person, or whether you're going to be a lion and just take command. Or whatever your role is in life, but you'll be the best at that. So I was thinking, what is faith? What would that mean to me if I really had faith? It's knowing that your fear doesn't guide you or limit you or contain you. But Hashem, the Deidi, your beloved, does. Hashem does. The Deidi does. The Deidi is the one that guides you. So today's Hayom Yom Gimel Elul is all about Hashgacha Pratis, and it takes me to a source in another one that's Hey Adar Aleph. In another Hayom Yom, it takes me to a source there, which leads me to a story of the Baal Shem Tov, which is fascinating, and it spans generations. An incredible story. So I want to read you some of that, because I happen to have the English translation, which is pretty well done in Likutei Diburim. I'll just read you some of that. It's very long, so I'm going to have to be selective in my citations. So do you agree with me on that definition of faith? If you're being led in life, you're not being led by your fears. You're being led by your beloved. He's guiding you. He's taking you by the hand. That's the way it says it in Hayom Yom. Not taking you by the hand, but basically that. It says Hashgacha Pratis, divine particular providence, means, in other words, that God's guiding your life. That means that you know that Hashem mitzader gever kainanu, that Hashem guides the steps of a man. That your path is being directed by God. And if you know that, so you walk with more confidence, obviously. Asher neshama zu tzricha levarev l'saken et b'ruv tikun b'makom pleni. Because why are you walking? Where are you going? The soul has to go somewhere to do something. We're specifically souls in bodies. It speaks about it in length in the commentary on this. Friedrich Rabbi, I believe, is the author of this. Yeah, Tafshin Beis. The Rebbe said this in 1942, the Friedrich Rebbe. You know what was going on in the world at the time, right? There were a lot of people escaping their countries, these refugees, Jews. But the Rebbe was focused on, don't forget that you have a purpose. I know you're suffering. I know things are difficult. But there's a reason why you're there. It's very simple in Judaism. We have a reason to be there because you're going to daven and learn Torah and do mitzvahs. Okay, it's very simple. So the Friedrich Rebbe is consoling people on their difficulty and their journeys to know that there's meaning for them to be there, that they have purpose in their life. That's like the empowerment of purpose that existentialism says about the people that the philosophy that there's meaning in life. That becomes your empowerment, the purpose. What's the name of the Holocaust survivor that has this whole philosophy? Can't think of his name right now. But this is a whole philosophy in existentialism, to believe that purpose means and even in Chassidus it's brought that a person could suffer something more, and even sometimes with joy. I think it's even brought in Tanya, if he knows that there's purpose for it. And for hundreds of years, even from the time of the creation of the world, from the beginning of the world, every single thing in this world is waiting to be interacted with in a holy way, to be used for some purpose. Even the physicality of the world wants that. Water, we're going to learn from the story of the Baal Shem Tov. And even this soul, from the time that it was spawned in Atzilus, v'nivro, and then created in the lower world of Bria, it anticipates and yearns for the time that will come down to correct and to prepare the world and the mission that it's cast upon it, or comment upon it, of the soul. So here you get the idea of this desire that's always fueling all of Chassidus. This fire, especially it says about Aliyah, which we've been learning, right? Ma'ar Naim taught Aliyah is the force to desire the union of thought and speech. What is thought and speech? Thought is your own personal world, and speech is your ability to communicate. When you're genuine with your relationships, that's Mashiach. Mashiach means the Messiach is a dibur. HaMachshava Messiach is a dibur. Thought is the muse of speech. It brings out genuine speech. So your communications, your relationships are meaningful. Good morning. It's brought out of you through thought. So your intent, your mindfulness is in your speech. In other words, you're in communication, your interactions with people, and that's Mashiach. People don't understand this. They don't know what Mashiach is. People do not know. Maybe it's miracles. Maybe it's eating a lot of chocolate cake. It's about meaningful relationships, okay? The Rebbe quotes this as a source for the whole idea that Mashiach will start with the individual, not a king sitting on a throne and say, wake up, Yidden. I mean, he said, wake up, Yidden. But he wasn't on a throne in Yerushalayim with the Beis HaMikdash built, etc., etc. It happened before that. That the Rebbe spoke about that too. He's going to build the Beis HaMikdash b'mkaimai, in its place. What do you have to tell me? Its place. Of course, it has to be in its place. The Rebbe says this is talking about specifically the time before the Geula. That's why he's on the roof. It says Mashiach's going to stand on the roof of the Beis HaMikdash. The roof is the only part that's not sanctified. Maybe it's because birds land on it. They put spikes on it so birds won't land on it. I saw yesterday, I was walking through like the harbor front, see the air show, and there was a very glorious statue of Mr. Rogers. Not the one that you know, but the one that built this, I don't know, the arena, the stadium, whatever it is there. They have a bronze statue of him on his turf, right? In his colors, bronze. But he had more than just colors on him. He had a pigeon on his head. Good place to nest. The Rebbe didn't want his picture on a stamp, because you stamp a stamp. We don't need to make statues of ourselves, because what's going to happen with a statue? A pigeon's going to sit on his head. And if you're the Eggman, you don't want to be there. You want to get the eggs out of the chicken. You don't want to get anything else from the chicken. So we don't put ourselves on stamps. We put ourselves on coins, interestingly. Didn't we? Someone give me a source for that one. We minted coins with pictures on them. So I don't know if we put our leaders on them. Maybe they're symbols. What's the difference? Maybe there's a difference. But even if that was a symbol of Mr. Rogers with a pigeon on his head, it's still not. It's a pasnish. That's why, in Har Sinai, the birds would just like burn up to crisp. You get like barbecue chicken wings after the event. But there was a certain sage also, I don't remember, I can't remember, that when he spoke, birds would just, if they're flying overhead, they would burn up. They would incinerate. Okay? So you don't want to have birds sitting on your head, okay? If you're going to make yourself into a getchka, some bird's going to land on your head. You don't, right? You have to realize that it's the image of the king. It's not, once you make that move, that's what allows us to nullify ourselves to a king. It's brought in mitzvahs minui melech and derech mitzvah tzedek tzedek, okay? Third Lubavitcher Rebbe writes about this at length. The reason why we could be bottled to a king, we could defer to a king and give him so much honor, so much submission before this individual human being, is because he's totally nullified to God, at least in office. and potential. That's what he represents. So when it's a real king, so therefore you're doing it in a way that reflects the ultimate kingship in this world when you have a king on a throne. Okay, so even the physical things of the world are waiting for you to encounter it and elevate it. So you got to realize the importance of the way you're guided. That it's not by your fears that you're guided, but the deity does guide you. So I wrote a haiku about this idea. I think the idea of God walking with you is not necessarily powerful enough to inspire, I think you have to see what that really means. I think that's a metaphor for something else. It's a metaphor itself, but I think it's a metaphor for something else. It says that the Rambam writes about being Matayal in an orchard. You're going to walk, you're going to go for a stroll in an orchard. It's the orchard of Terah. It's a mystical stroll, and there you walk with God. And the Chachamim teach that you're going to be with God in Gan Eden. He's going to be in the center of a circle dance. Okay, it speaks about that a lot in the 15th of Av. It's just a beautiful image. And there's this whole romance to it that might be even beyond this idea of taking us by our hand. So when I think of that image, I try and dramatize it so I could really relate to it with the idea of Hashem taking an individual that was crushed in this world, like an orphan in the Holocaust, taking that child by the hand and healing him, because that's what it says in the Midrashim. God's going to heal you after even if a person's left this world. He's going to awaken with all his illness, like the bones of Ezekiel, right? The healing process, but there it's actually dry bones. Here, there actually it was the scattered bones. There's significance in that. Anyways, that's a bit off topic. But to dramatize this idea, I thought about someone who really needs to be guided, taken by the hand. I know people like that. You probably do also. People that really need. There's people that there in the world. I know someone who literally has no parents. Okay, a boy. And so many people are can abandon someone in a community. I don't really understand that. How do you abandon someone in a community? You just can live in a vacuum. You lived amongst people, I assume. Just someone I know. So vineyard dance. Branch out in the forest. Couples. So I'm still living with 15th of Av. They went to the vineyard to dance, and they're looking for a shidduch. They're looking for the shelter. So that could have been near a forest, right? And just trying to give an image here. And what branches out into the forest besides trees? Couples branch out into the forest. In Mitzrayim, they were tachas hatapuach eratich, or something like that. Beneath the apple tree, they were awakened. Okay, you could use your imagination. They were aroused. So God made trees to make private spaces because they had to go out to the fields because the couples were devastated. The men were overworked and they weren't able to function. They brought, of course, the mirrors, which I spoke about another time. So anyways, this is like an orchard. You go out to walk in an orchard. Couples branch off into the forest because you have a private domain. You're in a vineyard, an open space in a vineyard, and you branch off into a private domain, and you branch out because you have a productive relationship, a relationship that has children. We were so much of a part of Yiddishkeit. I didn't realize this before I became a Baal Tshuva, was family. I couldn't extrapolate that from why is this guy always changing diapers in the Chabad house. I couldn't really understand that one day I'd be doing that, and that would be such a major part of my life that I wasn't ready for it. It was a Baal Tshuva didn't see that growing up. We had a pretty big family. There's 4 of us. It's a big family. But I didn't know that all of Judaism is about that. So when I got married, I was like, okay, so where's the davening and learning? I was in Kollel and I still was asking that question. Maybe not then. But in terms of the obligations of being in the world, of relating to people on normal levels, people make a very big mistake. Baal Tshuvas, in particular, because from birth are just normal by nature. Normal meaning they have to actually strive to learn from the Baal Tshuvas. The Tzaddikim will do Tshuva. They have to learn from the naivete, the karate of the Baal Tshuva. So faith, the extension of faith is that if I'm supposed to attain a goal, if I'm meant to do that, I know that God's going to take me there. I know I'm going to be successful. I brought this in the context of leadership. How do you know your leadership's going well? When your hits are up. If they're down, your message is not getting out more, God's shutting you down. It's a message from Hashem. And it's to make someone realize that if they're doing it for their own personal goals, like independent of their cause, they're not meant to lead. So Hashem has mercy on that person so as not to let him stumble in such a big way that he makes his message not get out. So everybody who is sympathetic to a message has like an obligation to that message in terms of contributing to the success and the confidence of that person with the message, whoever it is. So I have a story here that's brought from the other Hayom Yom. It spoke about slightly different terms, but it's really the same speech, I believe. Different segment brought for Hey Adar Aleph. There's no doubt at all that in anywhere that your foot traipses across the earth, everything is to purify and cleanse the earth. Through words of Torah and Tefillah. We Jews are emissaries of the merciful one God. Each person on his personal journey. It's going to start with the individual. God's going to take you by the hand. You're going to see Hashem's walking with you in all the contexts, going off into the forest, and like in all contexts, in all levels. Hashem's going to be part of the dance. He's going to be in the center. We're all going to be pointing to Hashem in that particular dance of Mashiach. Okay, Misha Sarva Av is a foretaste of that dance. But the real way it's going to be is a machal tzadikim lasud lavei. A machal, how do you pronounce it? A dance with God in the center, and everyone's going to point with their finger and say, "This is my God." Whatever. Zeh kelim and veu. Is that the verse they're going to say? Zeh. Marabetz by that's bayim v'emrim zeh. You're going to point with your finger and say, "This is my God." And it's going to be Yudavka virgins. What is a virgin? What, can we remember what that was? The naive thought, wasn't it? Yeah. The man is trapped. Specifically, not a man defines this dance. It's about the virgin, the basula. That defines a dance because what is a virgin? It's someone who is not trapped in intellectualism. That's what it defines there in the mimer that I brought. And someone that can dance is someone who's beyond their intellect. A person who's just academic, just a nerd in that area, cannot dance, okay? That's the white man's overbite. Okay, if you watched, what was that show? Three's Company when I was a kid. That was my Bible in those days. Every day after school, Three's Company. That's why I grew up, okay? You don't like it? So, don't listen to Matisyahu. Find some other Jewish music out there. Come on, we want Matisyahu to come back. Everyone has to daven for him. Okay, he's a holy yid. I heard him freestyle about concepts in Tanya in a room full of like 20 people, and he was awesome. He's a holy yid. So here, everywhere your foot steps is to purify the wood. So you're on a mission. No one's free of this holy mission. Asher hu masa al shichmenu. That's laden upon our shoulders. Our holy mission. Okay, we have to romanticize the word holy because we don't know what it means. It has a lot of resonance in Hebrew. The word Kadesha is a harlot. And Rashi has to explain how could you use such a word? Because she's devoted to a certain task that happens to be promiscuous. But the same concept, we have Kedushin. There's a betrothing stage when the persons become dove-eyed into the other. Okay? When the gaze of the dove makes the other, the mate, the male in particular, not want anybody else in the world. It's not natural for a man to want more than one wife. It's not natural. Maybe it has something to do with Malchus, because we have laws about that regarding Malchus. David had 6 wives. And they said if you got Gehenna of Gehenna, you'd be able to 18, no more. Don't do like Shlomo Melech, okay? 1,000 is too much. But it's not natural. And source that I have this from is to, in the context of understanding the ban on polygamy, is this idea that it's not found in the Talmud that anyone had more than one wife. It says on Chabad.org. I found that idea and I thought that was interesting. And I don't know if it's true or not. I find it hard to believe, but they say it's true. So if they're true, so I try to think about it. What's behind it? This idea is not natural to want more than one wife. Every instance that happens amongst the Avos, there's a reason why it had to be that way. So it's not natural. You're supposed to have, there's a Besherter. There's one. So if you have a relationship with Hashem, that you have only one goal. I want to do what you want, Hashem. I know it's all not always clear, so like it becomes convoluted, obscure. That's the whole purpose of a world. And in fact, I have sources, Rabbi Markel posted great sources, that God made a game. The world is a type of game. You're supposed to, okay, we have that in another source, I just thought. The Rebbe Marash used to play hide and seek or something like that, and he would, I don't know, it's something like, it's an analogy for this, an allegory for God hiding, you have to find, okay. I don't want to get into that story because I got a huge story ahead of me, and I'm running out of zip. Buzz loses his zip. So the source for this is a very long sikha of the Frierdiker Rebbe. 1942, speaking to the refugees, Jewish refugees, that encouraging them that they have a reason to be where they are. Okay, it says some interesting things here. Before I get to the story, it's describing the point of the story, which is that every single thing that you interact with is longing for it to be used for your interaction with it for a holy purpose. Yours. Because, well, wherever you're going to end up. So all those atoms, molecules that constitute what makes up everything that you interact with is dependent. And that's described in the Torah as Mayim Tachtenim Beichim Anu Be'inim L'Mahave Kadem Malka Kadisha. The lower waters, okay, the things that you're driven to in this world. Water represents pleasure. It means those things that resonate with you. Okay, whatever you identify as that's called Mayim Tachtenim. That's the salt. Okay, we sanctify the water. We'd say the consolation is that it's the salt on the altar. So anything we use, there's a pleasure. You know, Light's wife was turned to a pillar of salt, not because she looked back. That was just what triggered it. But it wouldn't have triggered if not for something preceding it, that an attribute expressed or an behavior. She didn't want to give salt to her guests. She didn't want them to enjoy it so they'd come back, because they weren't allowed to have guests in that society. That was their values. So that's the water, is the salt in the Mizbeach, and you're supposed to be the beloved of Hashem. You're supposed to want to do God's mitzvahs and unite with people, and unite with God, with the other, whatever you identify as other. So these lower waters cry, and what do they cry for? When am I going to be able to approach the Holy King? They want to be used for something that involves a mitzvah. What is a mitzvah? It's God's plan, design for beauty in this world, or whatever you want to say, for what's right in the world, whatever you want to say. Okay, so that leads me to a very long story. Okay, it's 9:48. Am I allowed to vape online? That might give me a little bit of a zip. This story is like generational. It's a long story. I want to jump around it, and hopefully it will make sense. You gotta understand that when we're talking about these stories, let's go back. In the Chumash, when you're speaking about anybody, even Lavan, even Late, these characters, right? The Paroi Pharaoh, All these characters represent very lofty ideas, and they were embodied in personalities throughout history. We have giants of character also in more recent times, starting with, in particular, the Baal Shem Tov. Lots of major giants prior to him too, but in the history where sort of, if you're involved with Chassidus or all of that thought, like that, you identify with the history of that, and the Baal Shem Tov is a major figure who comes out, who just Chassidus just emerges from Baal Shem Tov. So it's a story how he sends someone out to this guy named Rabbi Chaim Rappaport, an eminent scholar. Okay? He had to go way out of his way to give a mission. And the mission was that he's going to have to study the laws of brachas of Rambam in a certain forest. My father used to tell me Baal Shem Tov stories when I was a kid. He used to make them up. He had been inspired by Rabbi Nachman. He have a lot of his stories and like read them and find them fascinating, and the imagery and everything. So he would tell me stories about Baal Shem Tov in forests and like fish in the forest, in the ponds, and beautiful images. That's how I grew up. Not just on shtus. That was holy shtus. Shtus the Kedusha. So the Baal Shem Tov stories often occur in forests. I gave it my haiku about the forest. I said it before, but I'll type it later, later. So he has him do something there in the middle of the forest in some way, in some place, I mean. And any innovative interruption that came to his mind, he was immediately to jot down in brief in order that it should not be forgotten. Here's a source for interrupting something important. To jot down Chiddushei Torah. Sometimes you could get compelled to do that while davening. I haven't had it so much recently, to be honest, but I used to get it quite a bit. And I would have to write it down. Sometimes I want to do it on my phone if I didn't have a pen or whatever. And it's like embarrassing because people are looking at you. What are you doing? That's so weird. What are you typing your wife about a carpool or something like that? What do people think? You know what are you doing? I'm trying to. This is an amazing pasuk. So I'm like take pictures of the pasuk. I won't forget it. Okay, whatever. He was to begin the day by davening at daybreak, eating breakfast and setting out, making sure that nothing blocked his way. So nothing's going to block your way if you're on a mission, but watch what happens to him. Sometimes if it's really important, there might be obstacles. It might be, God forbid. He has obstacles. I didn't really get a chance to know exactly all of them, but let's just see if it unfolds before us. When he arrived at the forest and saw the Baal Shem Tov standing there was a place at which he was to sit and study as prescribed. Finally, after the minute of prayers, he was to make his way safely for home. Baal Shem Tov also sent a letter. Okay, then he sent another letter. It goes on with a lot of detail. He should recite the morning prayers, no land of the breaking. Rabbi Chaim was accustomed to advise. Okay, there's now 2 missions with 2 guys named Chaim, so that really makes the story fun. And then it gets into Rabbi Moshe Meshel, who was the one who originally gave this mission. He was the messenger of the Baal Shem Tov to this Reb Chaim Rappaport. So his name is Reb Moshe Meshel. He's the one who told us the story. We know this through him. But he gives you some context of what's going on in the world at the time. Because this story actually goes through the generations. So we'll see that if we get to it. It's very long. I don't know if I'm going to succeed in doing this. It might be. We'll see. So this is how the story unfolds. Rabbi Moshe Meshel, he at the time, when I asked one of the judges, Rabbi Moshe Yosef Yisrael, to allow me to meet him, he asked me in surprise, "Don't you know about the terrible decree that Deputy Archbishop Mikulski had just published? In the course of coming week, till next Thursday, they will tear out Aleinu L'Shabbat from all the prayer books. And from this Sunday, he will not allow to read this prayer in any synagogue, etc., etc." Okay? So that's what they were up against. And so the entire Jewish community and its surrounding township needs heaven's mercies on account of the dreadful decree. Okay, so I got to jump forward in the story. They actually did it for me in Hayom Yom HaMuvor, but it's in Hebrew there, and the English here is so beautiful. And it's such an interesting story, so if I can get some other pieces of this in without boring you looking around. then it will be worthwhile. Okay. Here I have something highlighted. On a visit to the Baal Shem Tov early in Elul, he learned Rabbi Chaim Rappaport told him, the learned Rabbi Chaim Rappaport told him that ever since he had carried out his mission in the forest to study the 4 chapters of Rambam's Hilchos Brachos and to pray mincha there, his eyes had been open in his understanding of the Torah, and his heart had been open in the service of the Creator. This actually constituted an Ibur Neshama, as I think will come out towards the end if we get there. He praised God for this great gift and thanked the Baal Shem Tov for having chosen him for this mission, for he had no doubt been privileged to be enriched by the radiance of some lofty soul. So he went on this mission, okay? He didn't know why he did it. He just did as told. He went into the forest, learned some things, made Chedush Torah, davened there. He ended up drinking water there, I think it says. Let's see if we get to that. But we give background to the story, because the Baal Shem Tov tells us the following story at the next Shabbos table. About 160 years ago, in the year 5359, which is 1599, one of the eminent scholars of Prague by the name of Rabbi Shmuel Tzadok settled in Lvov. Okay, this guy was the father of someone who became, he wasn't brought up right, and he became an Epicurus. He left the faith and started making fun of it. The learned Rabbi, I'm just jumping around. Rabbi Shmuel Tzadok was hostile to the Kabbalists. At every opportunity, he would insult them and scoff at their customs, to the point that he came to be called Rabbi Shmuel Tzadok, the opponent of Kabbalah and Musar. The hostility to Musar, and of course in the Kabbalah, in which he had no faith, he implanted in his sons. Since his business venture prospered and a rich man responds with insolence, he spoke out arrogantly and against all the scholars whose views differed from his. So this was a scholar who rejected not only Kabbalah but also Musar. Musar might include here like the beginnings of Chassidus. And he was around. At this point, the long-suffering patience of the Maharal came to an end. He summoned Reb Shmuel Tzadok and rebuked him. Okay, the Tzadok, the Maharal of Prague, I think. When Reb Shmuel Tzadok persisted in trying to vindicate his mistaken stand by ingenious scholarly acrobatics, the Maharal told him that he was a revived spark of the Talmudic scholar who was able to muster 150 specious, I don't know what that means, arguments to pronounce a defiling reptile pure. Specific, it should say maybe, arguments. 150 arguments. Why? To make something impure, to argue that it's pure. So there was such a Talmudic scholar, it doesn't name him here, okay? But there was such a scholar, and he's a Gilgul of that neshama. So anyways, the story is that by going there and drinking the water or something, he frees the soul or something like that. Or no, it ended, that the schools that he got in going on that mission marked the moment of the ending of his suffering in below. Okay? I think it was 117 years. I think I have those words highlighted where that appears. 117 years. So maybe that would be the end of the story. It's like a 25-page story. How am I supposed to read this all to you? I'm just jumping around. Maybe I'll go through it and be able to say it over and, paraphrasing. No, I can't find where it says the 117 years. I do know where it says here, though, in Yami Muvur. If I get the right one, yes, here it is. Yeah. Mea v'shvasrei shana, psak beistin shel Maila, as dinei shel Moshe ben Shmuel Tzadok. He was decreed 117 years of burning in, where? He was in the smelt pot of purging, suffering, difficult suffering, bitter suffering in Gehinnom. Ebeshel, benidud v'tulim shainim, v'chedesh Tammuz, havar nigmuru hamei v'shvasrei shana. At that time, his judgment was over. 117 years was up. Ben Shmuel Tzadok. This Moshe ben Shmuel Tzaddik, we learned about Shmuel Tzaddik here, but he had this son who became this Abikoros and this opponent against Kabbalah. He used to make fun of them, Kabbalim. And at the 117th year, they said, what are they going to do with all the Torah that he learned? He's now freed from Gehenna. What about the Torah? It needed some schus to purify it from the depths that it had sunk. So they sent this Chaim Rappaport on this mission in the forest. The Baal Shem Tov used him to mazaka him, and his Kedusha Torah and his davening elevated the soul, and the Torah of the soul, rather. So he had 30 years of learning. So what are you going to do with these 30 years of learning? That's what I guess he fried out after 30 years. Unless he only lived 30 years, or whatever. So I chose this person for the schus to purify what was impure. Remember we used before the 150 reasons to impurify something? to purify something that was impure. In other words, to allow someone to encounter something that was impure through the power of the Torah. In other words, to get that kayach out, which was the gilgul of the neshama of Tzaddik, Shmuel Tzaddik. It needed the schus to purify, to bring up the 30 years of Torah. And that's what was accomplished with this mission of learning Rambam, saying, and I think from drinking of the water there. I couldn't find that exactly here. Maybe it goes on to say that right here. But anyways, that's the story. So it ends off with saying, this is the whole concept of divine providence. Every single creation has a time of its ascent. Every single creation is going to be brought higher, elevated in a certain time. Maybe the suffering or the yearning that's prior to that is part of the game that God makes, and God says the game's up at such and such a time. And every person is drawn to certain missions because they have to elevate those things. Maybe they get stuck in some area because they have to elevate it more. They didn't succeed. But when a person's elevated, maybe they'll be drawn somewhere else. Every single neshama yeshla, it has a purpose. Ma ube'ezim makam what and in which place is that soul's mission to work on and to correct? Okay, the deity does guide you. That's what faith is, knowing that you're not being pursued by a dark force, okay, a bad guy. I spoke about this many months ago, before the winter, or at the end in the winter. Look around to see that you're being pursued by your beloved, and he just wants to hold your hand and guide you. And that's Hashgacha Pratis. That's the realization that there is this force in the world. It's faith that underlies this belief in Hashgacha Pratis, but it's the knowledge that that's the fact. Faith is what perhaps is the energy that allows you to have that knowledge. But it's a knowledge you have to live that way. Your interactions in the world, you have to say, that is my walking with God. I'm branching off in the forest. I don't know which way I'm going to go. But I'm branching there to have an intimate experience with God. That's the way I wanted to sort of romanticize this idea of walking with God. Where are you walking to? We're talking about a unity with God. We're talking about the first step will be healing the person. Attempt to lakutu kol echad v'echad miYisrael, or something like that. The verse says, God is going to gather each person individually and by the hand. So first he's going to heal the person, then that's going to lead to a unity with the person, and that's going to be manifest in a dira b'tachteinim. Every person's going to find their b'sherter through this dance of machal tzadikim lasid lavei. This dance is going to be for the purpose of uniting, and it's going to be through the power of the basula, which is dancing through life, not being constrained in this fear and anxiety and even mind itself, but to have this trust and faith, this sort of like lift in your gait, in your walk, like Yaakov Avinu had. His legs were lifted up, conquering the world. Makli of Arti. And on the way there, he crosses with his staff. He just had a staff. He didn't have money. He didn't have anything. He had staff. He had power. I spoke about staff and leading up to Pesach time, okay? Grabbing the staff and grabbing the serpent and seeing it's a staff. It's a source of power and leadership. It's a symbol of leadership, power, force. Okay, everyone. I hope everyone has a great day. People are quiet today, but that's good. That's also good. It's listening. So have a great day, a blessed day, and I hope everyone could see a Shkaka practice in the world. Okay, it's a metaphor that God's taking you with the hand. You don't see like a Zeus-like figure coming out of the sky. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, his name. But you know what I'm trying to say. Coming from the sky. You don't see, you have to be imaginative. It's a poetic process to see that you're in an actual relationship with Hashem. Ultimately manifest in finding your B'sherta, of course, and in being the king of your world, not just, that's the whole, a king, what would he deny himself? So a person has to be, Bias Mashiach will be manifest in each person individually first. Before you can have a king on the throne, you can have a king of your world. I say this to someone, and this person called me out of my Shabbos table, told me it sounds like Christianity, and I don't even know what that means, because I don't know anything about Christianity. Baruch Hashem. I know only art history, so that in that context I know a little bit, and I regret that a lot. Not because I think that I chose wrong, just because it's, who wants those images in my head? I want an image of the Rebbe in my head only, of like a holy person. I want to know what Moshe Rabbeinu looked like, so he probably looked like the Rebbe a little bit. I don't know. What is our examples for a tzaddik? Look at the Rebbe's smile and see Karnei Haid shining from his face. Karnei, isn't that what they call the rays of glory that came out of his face? Moshe Rabbeinu. Have a great day. You should have shining rays of light guiding you, so that even if the forest is dark, you should see the light shining, the splintered sunlight through the. Okay. Have a great day.